All right. Well, we're all in situated. We know there'll be more folks come in, but I want to be mindful of your time, my time, all of our time. Together, this will be the final event for the Student Organization Leadership Advancement Retreat, which is the week-long worth of events for student organizations on how to be better student organization leaders, but also just general leaders altogether. Today's topic is going to be on organizational sustainability. So how do we make sure that your organization, whether you're new or you've been here for a good old decade, that your organization is able to stay here for quite a while at the institution. This year alone, this fall, we have 11 brand new student organizations that never existed prior to today. So we thought this was timely, and it takes along with our theme, continuing our theme yesterday, and how do we make sure that organizations are able to stay together. So my question, and this is just to get our juices flowing, this is somewhat participatory, is what makes successful teams? So I want us to think about, what do you think makes successful teams? And all shut up and say, what makes successful teams? Raise your hands up. Does it just passive learning? Yes.
Clear communication.
So clear communications, that's one of the things that you believe makes a successful team. What's another thing that makes a successful team? Yes, sir.
Teamwork.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right? There we go. What else? This room is so big. There's like 60 of y'all yesterday, and now not that many today. What else makes your organizations or teams? It could be any type of team. We got trust. What else? Yeah.
Accountability.
Accountability. We'll be them accountable for their actions, right? Anything else that we can think of that makes our team successful? Right? Is that what makes successful teams?
Shared vision.
A vision, right? So we know where we're going, we know what our purpose is, right? Like, you gotta know, why do we even exist? Why are we meeting, right? Like, it'd be hard if you were the ultimate frisbee team to then go say, we're here to play chess, right? Like, that's clearly a misalignment of priorities across the board. So my next question is, what makes a successful leader? Nothing.
The willingness to listen.
So willingness to listen, right? To gather feedback, right? What else? Yes, sir.
The ability to grab from everyone's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, so the ability to kind of individualize based off of the strengths and opportunities of each individual person, okay? And leaning into their interests perhaps. What else? Those are not the only two things that make successful leaders. Y'all are a shy bunch. I'm like, my gosh. Nothing? Yeah? Understanding maybe of their members, understanding of their own strengths and limitations, right? I think we can think of, in the leaders across the board, they have the ability to communicate effectively. They have the ability to tap into the potential of the members across the board. So what are we trying to do today? I have 3 learning outcomes by the time that you're done with this workshop that you will have. Number 1, we're going to identify team members, period. Identify the different types of team members and how to fight apathy in your student organizations. And I know for a fact that a lot of your student organizations, you have members that are just apathetic, meaning they're there for the t-shirts, for the benefits that you get, right? They're not there to do the work. So we're going to identify the different types of members in organizations. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to learn how to create high functioning and effective teams, which is in and of itself a way that we can sustain our organizations, right? If we're high functioning and we're effective, we're able to then sustain our organization. And then finally, we're gonna understand the importance of long-term planning for our organization. We're gonna give you some tools throughout this presentation to be able to assist you. So when we often think of teamwork, when it relates to student organizations, we're all working together towards whatever mission or goal your student organization has, right? So whether you're journalism, or a journal for literature or literary magazine, or you are a new student organization on making pottery, so we have People of Mud as a new student organization, right? Teamwork really is, in many ways, a predictor of success of your organization. But if you don't have it, it can also lead to the death of your organization. And I often see student organizations die within 1 to 2 years. When I say die, it's just the interest has died out, right? We don't have people, we have some passionate members that create the Maroon Media Society, for example, and then after they graduate, that interest goes away, right? And so how do we make sure that we're actually having organizations that are here for the long term, not just the short term? When I was an undergrad, I was part of the multiple student organizations on my campus, and they're still there today. I say that there's 3 solutions to make sure that your organization do not die. Right, so we're gonna do things in 3 here. Number 1, you need to understand your unique members. We're not talking about like what are their unique things, right? We're talking about the 3 different types of members that make up every organization, period. Then we're gonna focus on addressing team dysfunction, because most of your teams are quite dysfunctional. You have maybe 1 or 2 people that are actually doing all of the work, and the rest of the folks are just sitting there. So we're gonna talk about some tools for you as organization leaders to do that. And then finally, we're gonna talk about how do we remain focused on our purpose. Like if you were focused on those 3 things, your team members, dysfunction, addressing it, effectively addressing it, and then finally focusing on your purpose, we're gonna be able to get to where you need to be. So when we think of team members, it's all your student organizations have team members, right? Minimum of 5 is needed to be a student organization here at TMU. Whatever their names may be, you have a president, maybe a vice president, maybe a treasurer, maybe a secretary, and a risk manager. Let's just use those ones as an example. Or you're an organization that has 100 people in it, right? Which is totally understandable as well. In those, whether you're small or large, you're gonna really be able to differentiate it by what we say are thirds. So we're gonna look at some research that's been done now for almost 20+ years across student organizations. It's research done by TJ Sullivan on a book that he has that's really popular in college circles called Motivating the Middle. And so helping understand these folks is important. So in each organization, and these are not gonna be equally 33% and 33% and 33%, right? It's not gonna be that when we talk about top third, we're talking about just the 3 different types of members in your organizations. I label these people the rock stars. It's you in this told to come here because there was no one else to do it. And so you ensure that your organization is sustained here on campus. And how do we differentiate it? People in the top third, they get their identity from being the rock stars, the people that are always there. They seek success and validation. Their identity is tied to that organization. What they don't like are apathetic people in our organizations. What they don't like are looking back. And they don't like when things go undone. Right? Maybe this is describing you in your brain, right? Like you're like, yeah, that's me. I don't like when I don't complete it on my check marks. They are always busy. They are always busy. This maybe again is you. And they always seek opportunities to learn and grow. I know as an undergraduate, this was me. I was involved in student government, fraternity, student organizations. I had an internship. As an orientation leader, I was the rock star, right? And many of you in this room are also that way. And so you know that you always have leadership positions in those organizations. You are always making sure things get done. And then at the end of the day, you're like, I'm burnt out, right? Because you're always doing everything, right? Maybe in your organization, you maybe have one or two, maybe three people, right? That you can actually think of in your organization, organizations that do it. Then we have what's known as the bottom third. I mean, this could be over half of your organization. I label these people t-shirt wearers, the people that are just in it for fun. Right? These people are love to complain about anything that you do, and they seek out fun. They want it to be fun, and they want respect from you without actually having earned it, right? These are the things that they love. They want to be respected. These are the people that maybe are a little bit jaded, right? They've been in your organization long enough, they're like, nah, it doesn't matter, it doesn't really mean anything. They dislike rules. They're always complaining about if you have structure in your organization, they do not want to be held accountable. They do not want to have to go to these meetings where they're obligated to do something. They dislike and they often fight with in meetings the top third members, right? So if that makes sense. If you've ever had meetings where it's, you know, the leaders say one thing and you got other people, the naysayers saying something else, that's the type of people that you have here. They love to cause drama. They love to start it. They love to pass along the Tuesday, and then ultimately they're missing in action from any and all events that you have. For the most part, these people are there to cause a shitstorm, and that's what they are. They love to stir the pots. Maybe you can think of some of your members that are here. All they want is the t-shirts or the benefit that comes from it. I know that here at CMU, I would say 60% of those that are in NSLS are this. They're just there. Sometimes to complain or to do things at times. It feels like, I'm not saying it's the truth, but I use it because I know them well enough to be like, hey, I can say that for multiple organizations where a lot of people question like, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to do that? Why do we have to do this? These are the folks that are the bottom third that rarely show up to like activities and events. Then, which is probably where a lot of you may also fall, depending on the organization that you're in, you may fall into what is known as the middle third member. And these folks are individuals that like balance, right? Like they have jobs and families, partners, they have other involvements in organizations, but they really value the relationships that they get out of the student organization. They really value that group dynamic and a healthy group dynamic. They do not like the negativity that is often felt inside of the tension between the top third member and the bottom third member. They really dislike that. They don't like negativity. And then they do not like when you, the top third, are disorganized. Right? They dislike disorganization. They want to know exactly what they're coming into and what they're expected to do. Let me use this as an example. I was just volunteering with my daughter's PTC this morning. I dressed up as a minion. It was their first school dance, after school dance. And it was, I expected as a volunteer to come in and people would tell me what to do. Boy, was I wrong. I just came in, the door wasn't open, the room wasn't set up, nothing was ready to go. And I'm like, okay, well, it's how it's gonna be. And so that leaves a negative taste in your mouth, right? When something's a little disorganized, you're like, well, man, I can't do this. I need to know exactly what is it my role is supposed to be, right? I need to know what I'm supposed to do, give me clear instructions, give me clear, in many ways, like clear connections with folks. I'm there. This was me today. I wanted relationships. I'm there for the other parents. I'm also there for my daughter, right? I did not like negativity. I did not like that disorganization that existed. And I wanted to be in the background. I'm not taking the lead on the events. I'm not providing any of this stuff that's there, right? I'm just literally there, telling you what to do. And that was it, right? I'm there to make sure that the event goes smoothly. So I'm giving you, that was me today, I was a middle third member. Am I a middle third member most of the time? Heck no, but I at least today want to be a middle third member. Because it's not my place to plan to stand up for the kiddos. So you can maybe think about it, that we're all in our organizations, we all have these members. Maybe you are one of them. So what I say for this is that it is important that we lead, that we motivate, that we influence and impact from where each one of your members are. So as a leader of your student organization, it is important that you do an inventory. Where do all 10 of my members fall? Are they all top third? No. Are they all bottom third? No. Maybe there's a good range of things, but now you know how to lead them, right? So if they're a top third member, they like recognition, they like feeling in the know, they like taking on additional responsibilities, right? In the middle third, they like the relationships, they like to have clear instructions. If you are not providing that to them, they're gonna feel disconnected from your organization and eventually drop out. Stop coming to things. They don't like when the top third and the bottom third fight in meetings, and I know that this happens, because I advise all the groups here, and I know that this happens in every one of the Greek organizations, where people cannot separate personal from professional all the time. Right, so you can influence the bottom third. You can influence the top third. It doesn't really matter, just knowing that everybody has their own unique way and needs of being in those organizations. Because again, we are all bottom third at times. Right, we are all bottom third, we are all individuals that have some thoughts on some way things are going. I felt myself slipping today when I'm just standing there doing nothing, wasting my time, taking time off from work, using my time off to volunteer at my daughter's dance. I felt like I'm just gonna complain about the leaders of this event because, right, like you can see yourself moving easily if you're a middle third and having, right, I don't like this organization, I want clear instructions. I felt myself slipping into that bottom third today. Because I'm like, this is so disorganized, like, this is the. I planned it last year and it was fantastic, this year, meh. Okay, I get it. Sounds good, everybody has different styles. But I can see myself slipping into there, so understand that. Even if you may be a top third right now in your student organization in another one or another team, you may end up being a bottom third, and it does fluctuate. So, I've talked to you about already, who are the different types of people in our organization. We do an inventory of who they are, we can then motivate them and influence them and lead them from where they're at. Now we're gonna talk about how to create highly effective teams. And this is by Patrick Lencioni, and this book has been around for at least 30 plus years. There's copies of both of these books in the Soul Office, by the way, how to create highly effective teams, and this is being used in corporate world as well as student organizations. So, highly effective teams look like this. They have 5 specific things. They have an absence of trust. These are highly ineffective teams, right? So then effective teams would have the opposite, right? So, highly ineffective teams starts off with an absence of trust. People do not trust each other. The next level is they fear conflict. They don't like conflict. That's Gen Z in a nutshell. You don't like conflict. Lack of commitment. People aren't committed to the organization, right? Final thing, or fourth thing is they avoid accountability, as was mentioned earlier. Folks don't like to be held accountable. You said you're gonna sign up for something, then you actually show up for it, right? You signed up for solar, and yet now our organization has to go sit down and watch it in the solar office. And then the final thing that our ineffective teams do, they do not pay attention to results, right? Like, they don't care what the deliverables are, they're just existing. So we're gonna explore a little bit more into this, right? So again, inattention to results. These are ineffective teams. They do not pay attention to results. They avoid accountability. They lack commitment. they do not like conflicts, and they do not trust each other. So how do you build highly effective teams? Well, you do it through the opposite, right? So absence of trust often refers to them believing in you as an individual. This is really the cornerstone of any type of organization is trust, right? So absence of trust, the opposite of that, how do you build an effective team, is developing trust between each other, right? You cannot expect individuals from the onset, as we discussed yesterday, cannot just expect people to trust you immediately. Brand new students coming into your organization, you can't trust them. You as the leader cannot trust that they're going to be able to do what they need to, and they can't trust you necessarily, right? But especially when you're combining efforts and you don't know who they are, this idea of trust is going to take time. It's not immediate. Trust is actually earned through your continued actions, right? A lot of folks have heard me say this before, but I firmly believe that we are judged based off of our actions and not our words, right? So there's this motto from the suffragette movement that said deeds, not words, right? We want to see action, not that you're going to say you're going to do something. And this is how you begin to foster trust in organizations. You're also empathetic. Knowing that things are going to come around, and that things are going to pop up for individuals. And so you are, they know that you're communicating what's going on in your lives around the organization. So conflict, healthy conflict is important in student organizations. When we talk about fear of conflict, that is an ineffective team trait. Those are teams that are effective manage healthy conflict. Or I like to say, utilizing the social change model of leadership, controversy with civility, right? Having different opinions, but respecting the individual, right? You may believe in one thing, and another person believes in something else, and we separate the difference of beliefs from the individual. We still provide them with respect, right? And this concept of respect, that we can disagree pretty bad on different topics, but I'm still gonna respect you as an individual and provide you the space to provide that kind of belief and value system that may be different. Conflict helps build consensus. People then buy into what is it that you're trying to achieve, right? So ultimately, if you're just being kind of a little authoritarian leader, saying this is the way it's gonna go, no matter what, people don't actually then buy into what you're trying to do. If people feel as if their voices are heard, if they have that space to share their beliefs and ideas, they're more likely to buy into it, right? You may not always have the best idea. Let's say you want to do a Costa Lopez fundraiser, say no, but you know someone and someone else says, well, another two organizations also think someone will say Lopez on the same day. Maybe we should change it. But you're like, no, we're going to still sell these Lopez, and you have this conflict, right? If you're not able to compromise, you're gonna end up people like, I told you so, saying I told you so afterwards, right? When your fundraiser may not be successful. If everybody feels as if they can add into the decision-making process, they buy into that decision. And that's often gonna put them into the spaces and places you want them to be. Meaning, they're more likely to show up to the meetings, they're more likely to show up to the events, they're more likely to provide support when they feel as if their voice is valued in the decision-making process, right? A lot of times that doesn't happen. Sometimes you have to make decisions on a whim, and so we understand that. But that's one of the ways that you can really create an effective team, is making sure that you're including other people. What I've seen, some organizations do, and I think this is a great tactic. If this is, you're noticing that we're not providing space for everybody to share their thoughts, is that everybody starts off with 2 pennies at the beginning of the meeting. So you give everybody 2 pennies, And then, you ensure around the major decisions that everyone has to spend at least one of their pennies in the major discussion points, right? So that everybody has a voice and they're using it, so they have to spend that penny, they turn it into you to speak, if that makes sense, right? So the transactional thing, but then you're ensuring that everybody's voice is being heard in the process, at least in some point. Because I'm sure you have some members who, like yourselves right now, don't say anything, they just sit there, right? And so then this is actually requiring them to speak, and not just saying I agree, it has to be substantive, right? Making sure that their voice does get included, because then they will ultimately show up and support what you're trying to do. The next thing that we notice with ineffective teams is there's a lack of commitment, right? And we're not necessarily talking about commitment in terms of time, right? We know that we all have competing interests. We all have to balance a full time school schedule. Some of us are balancing full-time jobs or part-time jobs. We got partners, some of us have kids, things of that nature. What we're talking about is commitment to the mission, commitment to the organization. You know, sometimes, as we talked about yesterday, unhealthy organizations, right, say, utilize manipulation as a tactic to breed commitment, right? Don't let the organization down. I need you to show up for this, right? So the way that you build and commitment to organization is again through staying focused on that mission that you originally have. Keeping things brief and organized, not being a waste of time, ensuring that you're always circling back to the mission. I can't tell you how many school organization meetings I've actually sat through before where student organization leaders go off on tangents, right? They waste each other's times. And I think that's part of why they don't remain committed to it, to the mission, is because they're not buying into it, or they don't even know why the organization exists. We have some organizations here at KU that have been around for well over a decade. And if they've been here for over a decade, has there been an update to the bylaws? Have there been an update to whatever it may be? And have you actually taught your members why we were here? People buy into ideas after they buy into people, right? I mean, students join students, right? If you don't like the people over the organization, they're probably not gonna go to even firmly believe in that organization's session of values. Because you wanna be around people that you wanna spend time with, right? But how do you build commitment? It's to ensure that you're reminding yourself of the stories of our organization and why it exists. Rather than just saying, you know, we're here because we're a group of people trying to achieve whatever goal it may be. The next reason why, or not reason, one of the traits of ineffective teams is that they don't hold each other accountable. They don't, and this is something that I notice is very hard for folks, is to hold each other accountable. One, because it leads to conflict, right? If someone says they're gonna show up to something and they don't, they give an excuse. And then we don't hold them accountable for those excuses, right? Oh, something came up. And you kind of know, either they slept in, or they didn't want to do it, so they just give you some random ass excuse. And we're not gonna hold them accountable for those excuses, right? I know that we don't like to question people's reasoning behind not doing it, but if you sign up for something, you make a commitment to something, you should follow through with that commitment, right? And if you're already reaching that in the organizational expectations, right, when you're onboarding new members, right, you should be onboarding members. If you're not onboarding members, you have problems, right? You should be talking about when they're joining your student organization, what are the general expectations we have of members? We meet weekly at 2 o'clock on Tuesdays, right? We expect all of our members to pay $15 or help us fundraise, you know, $100 a semester. Telling them these are the expectations that we have. I just say, come to this meeting to figure it out. That's what I often hear. Come to this meeting, get to know our members. Yes, that's fine in the beginning recruitment stages, But ultimately, we need to figure out what are the actual requirements, expectations. We talked about this again, that's what builds healthy relationships and healthy organizations to begin with. We talked about this yesterday, with solar. Right, so we don't hold them accountable, one, we don't tell them what those expectations are, so that I can't then hold them accountable, right? I didn't know that I had to go to solar. I mean, think about it, friends, honestly, how many of you became student organization leaders this year, raise your hand up. How many of you became student leaders this year? How many of you knew that you had to go solar as student organizations prior to becoming a leader? Oh, okay, good. A couple of you knew, great. It's a requirement year after year, right? If this is an expectation of being an organization on campus, how many of you know what the student org handbook is called? The leader, that's right? These are some of the generalized expectations that we should have for our folks, right? Like your members are going to be held accountable if they don't know what the leader is, right? They can't say, I didn't know that it exists, right? We have to do a better job at onboarding, that way we can hold folks accountable. Student organizations aren't a job necessarily, but they are a co-curricular benefit that's teaching them real world career readiness skills and communication, right? Oral and written communication, maybe running a business, maybe digital fluency, right? Leadership, critical thinking, problem solving skills, right? How they manage their own career navigation as they move forward, right? So you move from a general student organization member to then take on a leadership role, and then the final third year that you're in a student organization, maybe you're the president, right? That's called career management, right? You're able to kind of figure out what position do I want, how do I want to add to the organization. All of those are career readiness skills that employers are looking for that you gain during college, right? They know you're getting a degree. They know you're getting a degree in communication or psychology or multidisciplinary studies or biology. They know that you know basic concepts. What they don't know is, do you have the skill sets to be successful in our student or in our business, right? Can you get up in front of a group of people and talk to them? Or are you going to kind of shake and be nervous or things of that nature? Student organizations help build those presentation skills, help build the recruitment skills. You can talk about like, hey, in my student organization, I have to manage the meetings, right? So now they know that you can create an agenda, you can lead meetings, right? You work with people across differences. These are all marketable skills that you now developing as student organization leaders that employers actually want. And especially if you plan on leaving Laredo, these employers across the country have told us, and why we know that that's what they want. They tell us in annual surveys and career services across the country, they tell us these are the skill sets, and these are people all across the country. Right, so if you plan on leaving Laredo, you better be talking about, they know you got a degree, but if you're trying to differentiate yourself from all of the other 100 applicants, you need to be able to talk about that. And so accountability is another way that you can do it, holding each other accountable through explaining the expectations. We're not saying that you're going to negatively punish someone in their accountability, but you're going to at least make sure that they know the expectations. And then have a conversation, a difficult conversation with them after, say, you signed up for a shift to register voters. I noticed that you did not show up. What happened here? Right? So you're coming from a good space, like what happened, right? And if they tell me, you know what, I'm sorry, my car broke down, I got it. Great, I appreciate you, like I fully understand that things happen. Did you communicate that with us? No, I completely forgot his face. In the future, it would be lovely, it would be wonderful if you could let our officers know that you're unable to do this commitment that you've made to the organization, right? People like, one, to be heard what's going on, but two, they like clear directions. And a lot of times we just think that, okay, that's fine. We don't provide them with the steps they need to do. The final thing that organizations tend to do when they're ineffective teams is that they don't pay attention to the results. They don't pay attention to their deliverables, right? Like, for example, I think most of your two organizations here fall into the trap that all we should do is fundraise. Because that's really all the events that I see you all do. Almost all the events that come in are fundraising events. And those fundraising events aren't how you achieve your mission. Right? Your mission, right? Let's say you're women in STEM. You're here to promote women inside of the STEM field, right? You're here to bring speakers in, help introduce them to different opportunities for women inside of a very difficult field for women to actually be successful in. But if you're spending all your time fundraising, you're spending none of your time on creating those spaces for speakers to come in, inviting them in, you're not actually fulfilling your mission. You're not delivering on the results, and then once you don't deliver on results, people don't want to be part of those organizations because then you're disorganized, right? You see how these things, the effective teams and understanding your team members are interconnected, right? Because if you're not paying attention to results, that's disorganized, and your middle third people will leave it. You get it? How they're connected, interconnected? Hopefully you did. So how do we make sure that we're staying purpose driven? That's the third component. This is the third thing. How do we make sure that we stay purpose driven? Number one, and we're going to talk about this here in a second, is that we hold elections early. Number two, we develop manuals. 3, we have effective transitions. Oh wait, I don't know why I did that. Sorry, weirdly done there. So there's 5 things here. You consistently, to be purpose-driven, make sure that you're achieving your mission, is that you consistently review and update your bylaws, that you set SMART goals, that you avoid mission drift, that you hold elections early, that you develop manuals for your different positions, and then that you will have effective transitions. So we're going to cover each one of these 6 areas here. So, how many of you have reviewed your governing documents this year? Yay! The Christian organization here, you should be reviewing these all the time, especially at least once as a big group, right? At least once, and updating it. It's not just there collecting dust, right? Like the US Constitution does. It gathers dust. It's only the last time it was updated was in 1992. When the most recent amendment passed, right? So we need to review your governing documents, your bylaws, your constitution, and make sure that everybody's on the same page. We know what we're here for. I would recommend doing that at the beginning of the semester after you've done your recruitment, after you've gotten your new members in, and that you have one officer that's dedicated solely towards reviewing these bylaws and making recommendations to improve it. So this is how you build a sustainable organization, is you remain relevant here. You remain relevant by reviewing your bylaws, and ensuring like, do we need all these officer positions? Do we need to have all of these events? Could we do something different? Do we need to have it listed here? Another recommendation that I have as it relates to this is stop writing things in your constitution on mandatory events that stifles creativity. It holds future officers to have to do the same thing year after year after year. And that becomes stale. So that people find it to be more of a chore versus something fun that they get to do. Do you see that? Like, that's why I told SGA, stop writing things into your bylaws and constitution that mandates the different committees do specific things. Instead, allow creativity around what they want to do, right? The next recommendation that I have for you all is to set SMART goals. No, we're not talking about all goals should be SMART, right? Because you get what we don't ever make stupid goals. But what I'm referring to SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-oriented. If you and your organization do not know what the 2 to 3 things that you're trying to achieve this year, you have a harder time sustaining yourself long term. What do we mean by that? If you're trying to do everything all the time, you're actually not achieving what your organization is meant to do. So let's use the example of Women in STEM. Our goal this year is to have a speaker series of 3 speakers every fall. Or every semester, excuse me. Our second goal is to hold an informational meeting with Raytheon by the end of spring 2025. Raytheon is a defense contractor, right? So there's different opportunities in there. Does that make sense? So there's specific, the actionable item, it's measurable, I can know whether or not I achieved my mission or achieved that goal. Is it attainable? I'm not gonna hold 10 events this year. We're not, we're students, we're not having dedicated all of our time into the organization. Is it realistic? Could I host 2 speakers a semester? Yes, that's realistic, it's nothing challenging. And then is it time oriented? Per semester or by April 2025, you know how to hold each other accountable, right? If we're saying we have this kind of like mission that's out there, we don't know what it is, and we just set it up like, we're here to spread love, and well, that may be wonderful, but how do I measure that? How do I know if I've achieved it? Because you can't celebrate small successes or any success if you're too broad, right? So, River Gold Journal, which was Soul Student Organization of the Week this week, and our social medias, they produce a literary magazine, right? And so they host events promoting their deliverable, which is an electronic literary magazine. And now it's a physical one, it used to be electronic. That's wonderful, so they know they're gonna print 2 editions a year, or whatever it may be, I'm just using this as an example. That's what we're working towards, right? Then they know that we're gonna host a couple of social events for our members. I think you just recently had one of those letters today, letters to ourselves or letters to someone else, I don't remember exactly what it is, I've seen it, but you see what I mean, they know what they're doing, they have specific goals that they're trying to achieve here, and we're talking about SMART goals, right? So the third thing that makes sure that you're purpose driven is that you hold early elections. Most of you hold elections in April, right around finals, and right around the time when it's time to re-register your student organization. Guess what? It's on everyone's last mind to actually transition successfully, provide them the information that's needed on how to register a student organization, and it starts your student organization off at a deficit versus being at an agency space, meaning that you're actually ahead of the curve, right? So my recommendation is that you have elections early. March. Allow for your student organization to have a month to shadow, right? Election, March, you have a month to then fully transition that person, right? You're allowing them to shadow those officers as they're learning. Right now, we hold elections at the 3rd or 4th week of April and say, here you go, you're now the president of whatever student organization it may be. And they've had no training or limited training, and most of the time the officers tend to be direct, like students that are graduating, and then they're often never memorized, and we have no idea what's going on, right? I recommend that you do elections early enough that you have time to have at least 3 to 4 weeks of shadowing for your officers. The next thing that I would also recommend is that you develop manuals. The organizations that have manuals for the different positions, and it doesn't have to be super long, like for example, Soul produces a manual for Greek presidents, called the Greek President's Manual. It's 160 pages long. It provides them with toolkits on how to be an effective leader, parliamentary procedure, it provides them with different leadership skills, how to create retreats. It talks about their obligations and the different things that they have to do as Greek presidents. Wonderful. You don't need something that long, right? It could be a page that tells them, how do you submit community service hours for our city organizations, right? And how do you reserve meetings? Presidents, representatives, the secretaries, the treasurers, whatever may be, those that are longer should have a manual and a step-by-step guide that really could be dummy proof for someone coming in afterwards, right? Because to be honest, we know that college students and young people in general tend to believe that they're invincible. But you may end up with mono or something that takes you out for a month or longer, and then if you're the only one that knows how to do that job, you've left your organization kind of in a paralysis. And this happens with our student organizations. So I recommend you create a manual, it might be super crazy, but have something that you can transition and hand off. I'm the treasurer, and now Matthew's gonna be the new treasurer, and I'm gonna give her this manual that says, here. Now, we don't stop there, just giving her the manual, you should have transition meetings, right? Effective transition meetings, and it should last longer than a day, right? Say, here, let's meet, and then we don't prioritize it until right at the end, right? Because we're busy, and I understand that, but that's not creating sustainable organizations if we always use the excuse that I'm busy. I tend to believe that we make time for things that are important to us. And if we have committed to the organization, right? We can give up 30 minutes a couple of times here and there for 2 to 3 weeks to effectively transition. Allow them to learn the system, to learn the ropes, and then ask questions. Right? And sometimes you're like, here's everything I did this year, here's my binder, and then you're, peace out, that's it, that's the end of your time of talking to them. And then you don't even serve as a resource afterwards. There's a reason why a lot of organizations, nonprofit organizations, start off with elections for big positions like president-elects, and you serve as president, and then you're past president. So it tends to be a 3-year commitment. Doesn't need to be that way, it could be president-elect for a semester, then it's president for a year, and then past president for a semester. So you can be there as a reference and a guide, because you know things are bound to come in and come up. And especially if you have a large organization, I think of SHIP, it's a very large organization. There's like 90 or 100 some odd people there, and they do a ton. Right, especially as it relates to their organizations, fundraising efforts, education efforts, bringing in guest speakers, going to a conference, helping students get internships, what have you. Fantastic to the organization. And when you're that complicated, you got lots of moving parts, right? I recommend that you have an effective transition that's not just your normal, hey, we're having an election and then we swear you in, right? Or whatever process you may have. Right, you just kind of feed it to the wolves. I hope that's not what we're doing, because we know that those organizations that have effective transitions, that there's training built in there, that there's time for past officers to connect with new officers, you're actually setting your organization up for the long term. Now, if you do all 6 of these things, does this automatically mean that your organization is going to survive here on campus and be sustained here forever and ever? No. Because we're missing one key component, which is recruitment. We have not covered recruitment, but this is actually one of the most important things to ensure organizational sustainability, but I did not believe that I would have enough time to effectively discuss recruitment and recruitment strategies in all this 1 hour. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make an optional recruitment workshop for everybody. Probably here in mid-October. Talk about how do you effectively and just focus on member recruitment. Like our office, the Office of Communication and Engagement, is here to foster you all, and like the more organizations that exist here, fantastic. When I worked at GW, we had 500 student organizations. I love the student organizations, why they are very focused, and our office is very much focused on giving you as an organization leaders deliverables, right? How to navigate presidents, how to submit events, how do you do fundraising, whatever it may be, we're trying to be here better for you. We're lucky to have a brand new staff member. who can now spread the load a little bit, so that we're able to provide you with more resources. So we begin to look at things here as we move forward. We've also are, working with some of the other offices. I'm removing some of those roadblocks, those inherent roadblocks to your success, like soliciting donors and things of that nature. We're working to rechange those processes. We'll have an answer here in the next month or so. Things just at a university take time. So, that is the end of my presentation for today. I wanted to leave some time for questions, and this can be really about how you build sustainable organizations. So when I was at my undergrad experience, I was part of multiple organizations that were there for multiple decades, and was part of some brand newer student organizations. And I've worked with student organizations now for over 15 years. If you have questions for how to build sustainable organizations, this would now be the time. If not, yes. Yeah, so that's a great question. How do you program keynote speakers, right? So it depends on your organization's interest. So if you are, again, let's say I'm going to use an example, women in STEM, they should be looking at women in STEM, right? So you can Google some people that you're interested in and ask them, we'd love to have you as a virtual speaker, because it's really hard to bring people to the radio, right? Or look here locally and think about women that are in the medical field, right? And ask them to come in and speak here, or maybe some women that are in engineering or whatever it may be, having them do it, or even tech, right? I think often we forget the T as part of it, right? Technology, there are a ton of women that are here in technology. And asking them to come in and talk about their experience. So it's that personal reach out. Now, if you're trying to pay them, that's the difference. I would recommend you never start and saying that we're gonna pay you, because you're a small organization, right? A lot of people want to share their story. People love to talk, right? So it's as simple as just reaching out. Professors, not here, but at other institutions, or other businesses, other executives, whatever your topic may be, they are absolutely interested. Now, if they're like, will there be any way you could compensate me? Well, then you want to reach out to our office and we'll work through whatever the university steps to get them compensated, if you have it in your budget. I can't tell you that many student organizations have it in their budget, but many of our faculty here will do it for free. Right, we have our speaker series, they do it all for free. Right, and even then, we have contacts from the Alumni Association, what have you, where we were able to get last year for Soul Summit, which is the leadership conference day. They were able to come in and we brought in a lawyer who worked on multiple campaigns, and she's been very successful for free. Right, very, very successful lawyer in Houston, talking about her experience as a college student, her experience afterwards, she came in for free. Like, there are people that are willing to share their stories, especially to young, whatever topic it may be. Any other questions, friends? All right, well, I really appreciate it. There's a sign in the back. Thank you all so very much for coming in today, and we look forward to seeing you all on Wednesday at the next Student Organization Council meeting, which will also be held here in the city.